to the Bird Feeder. It's our place to come together, relax, and maybe sometimes we ruffle some feathers. My name is Joe Glennon. I am the chair of the Department of Advertising and Public Relations at Temple University. I was born in St. Margaret's Hospital in South Boston. I grew up in the South Shore. Weymouth is in the house. Anybody else? And even though my accent fell off somewhere between Philadelphia, back to Boston, out to LA, back to Philadelphia, and into South Jersey, I am a Bostonian. As you can see, I've got my stuff around me. I'm wearing my Go Sox shirt rather than sporting the usual Bird Feeder uniform. And tonight is essential to break uniform in order to flex my Boston muscles. My Boston roots may or may not be helpful tonight. That will be probably pointed out before we hit 6 o'clock. I do want to say at the beginning here, we're going to talk about Sam Adams beer. It's a product, it's an alcohol product. We've got a mixed audience here of students who are of age and of not of age. This is a point in the program we say consume responsibly and according to the laws of your local region. And it's also at the heart of it, though, this is a conversation about brand building and messaging. And so it's funny when I started to talk to AJ about this, the second phone call I made was to Maggie Place, who's our dean of students. And I said, Maggie, is this going to be all right? I don't want to cross the line here. And she said, it's fine, because I know it's going to be a conversation about brand building and not a celebration of alcohol. So, and that's absolutely what it will be. I will say to all the students here, if you're looking for case studies, examples, or categories to study to help you be better at advertising, beer, cars, and colleges, you can't do better. There's a great mix of parity, but there's also points of difference, and they both advertise like crazy. If you watch sports like I do, you'll be bombarded by cars and beer over and over and over again. And you guys aren't too far from the college admissions process to forget you guys got bombarded with college stuff. So those are great categories. It's another great reason why tonight's event is going to be a lot of fun here. So that's enough about me, enough warm up, enough preamble. What I would like to do is I would like to introduce our guest and welcome him to the Bird Feeder. His name is AJ Warren. He is an associate creative director at Goodby Silverstein and Partners. If you don't know Goodby, with one eyeball, Google them now and play along, because it really is one of the premier shops in the country and has been since 1983. If AJ makes me an offer tonight, I'll leave my wife in the morning and fly to San Francisco and go to work for Goodby. It's really that level of a shop. So AJ, I welcome you to the Bird Feeder, and I'd love for you to introduce yourself to our students. Give them an idea of how it is that you got to this spot in your life and your career, and I can share my screen and show those slides that you sent earlier, if that helps. That's great. I mean, I know it's like a visual medium.
I just did my career in 3 slides for everyone. We're going to be talking about your cousin from Boston. But before we get into that, this is sort of how I got to Goodby. Let's see. Oh, OJ, you're driving, right? Oh, there we go. Yeah. So here's sort of my career in 3 slides. So I started at Hill Holiday. I should mention I'm from Providence, Rhode Island, which is a lot like Boston. It's like an hour away, 40 minutes, depending on how fast you drive from Boston. I'm from the east side of Providence, if anyone's familiar with the area. Grew up New England family. I went to Brown, and then when I graduated, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. But there was a resume drop on campus for some ad agency called Hill Holiday, and I just gave them my resume. I applied to like a million different different places, and they called me back. So I started as an assistant media planner. It was like Excel, spreadsheets, numbers, and it really was like sort of not the way my brain worked. And to be honest, I was pretty bad at it. But it was a great sort of first job working in Boston. So then we can go to the next slide. So right out of the gate, I could just sort of tell that like I wasn't a good fit for this job. So I started asking myself, what did I like doing? What would make me want to get out of bed every morning? And I really liked reading and writing. Now, of course, sometimes, especially, with my parents, reading and writing, how are you going to make any money doing that? Why aren't you an engineer? But I at this ad agency, I met copywriters and art directors who were on the creative side. And I said, I want to do that. They said, if you want to be on the creative side, you got to make a portfolio. So portfolio school was a little expensive, and I wasn't totally sure I was ready for it. So instead, I just started to make my a student book at night by myself. I taught myself Photoshop, and I made sort of student ads. I'm sure it's really similar to the stuff that you guys do at Temple. And I did that at night for like 6 months. And then during the day, I eventually wanted to, try to start writing full time. So I got hired as an in-house junior copywriter at Wayfair.com. I'm sure some of you might know Wayfair.com. They sell furniture online. Having the in-house copywriter role, you write a lot of spam emails. Who gets spam emails? Every single day, right? We all get them. Someone has to write those, and that someone was me. And I also wrote a million coupons. But hey, it was a really fun way to learn how to write professionally and just sort of like refine your craft. And I had some fun doing it. So I realized, I think I'm onto something here. So finally, after about a year and a half of working on my secret student book at night and working days at Wayfair, I got hired. We can just go to the next slide quick at Arnold Worldwide in Boston. And so Arnold Worldwide, they are the ad agency that does the Progressive Becoming Your Parents commercials. I did some of those. And I just kept working as a junior. I was writing billboards and social videos and social posts, like basically anything I could get my hands on. I moved from Arnold to Deutsch, New York. And then while I was at Deutsch, I'd been there for about 7 months when I got a call from a recruiter asking if I'd want to go to Goodby Silverstein in San Francisco. So Goodby Silverstein, as Joe mentioned, is like, it was just a totally different world from what I was used to as an agency. I mean, they are just doing Super Bowl work every single year, huge brands. The expectations are really high. I loved it immediately. I've met the best friends, that you could ever ask for at that agency. I did the Doritos brandless campaign. If you guys have ever seen that, it's the Doritos spot with where we don't even say that the ad is coming from Doritos. I did a Chance the Rapper and the Backstreet Boys Doritos Super Bowl commercial, and from there, I think I developed good skills at Arnold and Deutsch, but then at Goodby, I think things really started to click, and that's where I got a lot of my experience writing TV ads. And so then, I had been at Goodby for about 2 years, and we were asked to pitch Sam Adams, and that's sort of where the story for today begins. But before I go any farther, I'll just kick it back to Joseph.
That's good, yeah, and that's where we'll pick up from here. I'm going to book you next month to talk about the Progressive Don't Turn Into Your Parents, because that's another. It's another story for another great series. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a look at a couple spots from your cousin campaign, and then we'll just start talking about them. So let me share again. If it's wonky on Zoom, sometimes video is wonky on Zoom, just shout at me. I'll resave. I'll do whatever we have to do, but hopefully it'll work. Please stand by. All right. Do we see the wedding scene, everybody? Yep. Good. All right. Here we go. And if there's no audio, tell me.
Wedding day, huh, boys? Been there, done that. Twice.
Your cousin from Boston.
3 times if you count Chrissy. Chrissy's right there. Huh? Oh, Chrissy, how are you? Fair enough. Karen, I'm just gonna say what everyone here is thinking. You look smoking. Total smoke show. Right, Mikey? You know what I'm talking about. You guys used to date. And they never did find his finger. They had to close the pool for like an hour. Where you want me? Here? Okay, you're the artist. Steak tartare, medium well, please. I brought a date named Sam, Boston Lager. Dig in. Yeah, cheers, guys. Cheers. Cheers. Marriage is a balance. Like barley and hops. And it's over too soon. Right, Chrissy?
Oh my God.
Don't you fall in love with me. Oh boy. Have you ever been to Fenway? What's up, Sean? Hey, what's this? Oh, got him. Classic.
Your cousin from Boston.
Okay, let's see the clicker. Money. Did it go? It says bad boy in Gaelic. I think.
Get out of here, Debbie.
High five. I brought Sam, Boston Lager.
It's crisp and refreshing.
And that's why Sam Adams gotta be my favorite president. You got something here, bud. Whoa, got him again. Twice. We're all friends now.
So there we go. So I tell you what, very, very funny. The writing is fantastic. The comic timing stands up, is perfect for that writing. The acting, the casting, everything is right. But and this is where AJ and I first met. Is my take on this? It's just completely wrong for the brand. So I'm just gonna rattle off a few points here, and AJ, hop in when I'm all done. And there's a lot of lessons here in my assessment, and then AJ's story around it. So my take on this is we're talking about a premium product that launched an entire category. There was no such thing as craft beer before Sam Adams and probably Anchor Steam on the West Coast. So here's this legacy brand doing something that feels more Bud Light than it does a premium product. It's something that is going to alienate the core customer who, I think that I'm part of that, and lots of people like me. And it leaves little room for the quality ingredient story, which, Jim Cook built his empire on. And then add to that, and this may be where my roots are blinding me, but it's more Boston bashing. We've become America's whipping boy, which between Bill Burr on SNL and Casey Affleck on SNL, and then you got Seth Meyers and his great Boston accent, fake movie trailer. So Boston has become the city and the people and the accent that everyone loves to hate. So I just, my thought is when I see this is like, wow, this is just such a departure for the brand that I don't think the brand has the plasticity to stand up to this, right? Brands are a collection of promises and expectations, and this is just a wild departure that it'll offend the beer people who have lots of places to go now, right? So I'm in a little tiny town, Haddonfield, and it's technically dry, but even we have a brewery in our town. That's how pervasive, beer culture is now for beer nuts. So there's lots of places for people to go, and they say, wow, this cousin from Boston doesn't do it for me. And, the price and the sort of the legacy of the brand won't be enough to attract a broad group of customers. So, I'm sure I sound like every naysayer in a boardroom that you guys ran across, AJ, if you even did. But I'd love to hear, your reaction to all those thoughts, and also, walk us through the process of how you got from, that original outreach from Sam's up until, the Super Bowl and beyond here.
Sure. And Joe, I should mention that we had those naysayers in the agency, creative people. So you're not the first person to bring up those concerns. I mean, that was like conversations we were having from the second that we created this concept. So those are all totally fair points. And hopefully, as I walk through the development of the character, I think we can hopefully address some of those concerns. But yeah, I mean, I guess probably the best way to talk about it might be just to do the story of the pitch. And so, Joe, it's up to you. Should I go back to the slide or yeah, this might be the way to do it. And along the way, I'll try to remember each of your points.
And you don't have to line up ABC. Mine is just a sort of a bag full of rants that, again, like you've heard already, and I guarantee each one is answered as you walk us through the process.
Yeah, but I should mention too, just before we get into it, that even though I'm from Providence, I mean, New Englanders, Providence, Boston. I mean, I am a proud New Englander. I worked in Boston for 5 years. My parents are, from Massachusetts, Rhode Island. Jeff Goodby, who owns Goodby Silverstein, is from Providence. I think probably 7 out of 8 of us on the pitch team were from New England. So that oh no, are we doing, we have to portray New England in the right light. That was a concern from the beginning. So yeah, I mean, this is something that was on our minds, but I can just go right through the pitch and we can kind of talk about it. So Sam Adams came to Goodby Silverstein, for a pitch. And so the first thing I did when I was given this assignment was read Jim Koch. Jim Koch is the founder of Boston Beer. Was read his biography. His biography is called Quench Your Thirst. And this is like a life hack that anything you do in life, someone else has done it before you and they've written a book about it. So I just downloaded the book on Audible. I listened to it on Saturday and Sunday and it was done and I loved it. And then I thought, and then we knew the story. So we can just go to the next slide here. Because like Joe was saying, Jim Koch started the craft beer revolution in his basement in Boston in 1984. I mean, he brewed this thing in his basement. And there was no craft beer at the time. At the time, it was Budweiser, Michelob, just huge domestic brewers, and they were brewing a beer that he thought you couldn't really taste. So that was 1984, and the company grew like crazy through the 80s and 90s, and they really defined this category. And then we can go to the next slide because over time, the revolution continued. I mean, Jim Koch's vision was so successful that beer got better everywhere. Brooklyn Brewery, Joe mentioned there's a brewery in his town. I mean, you go into like a supermarket in New York City and there's just a wall of craft beer. So Sam Adams continues to be the flagship. Oh, thank you. Thanks so much. Sorry. Continues to be the flagship craft beer in the United States, but every other craft brewery basically upped their game. And it just so happened that the market became really fragmented and people were sort of smaller, craftier, crazier ingredients, sort of breweries just sprang up everywhere. And on the next slide, I can sort of explain what Sam Adams was doing. So Sam Adams, through that whole time, was doing ads that were really focused on ingredients. Sam Adams only uses a very specific type of hop that is originally found in Germany. They're really expensive. All their advertising was focused on like hop selection, on the brewing process, on the quality ingredients. And that worked for a long time. But around the time that they had come to Goodby Silverstein, they had been experiencing about 5 years of a bit of a sales decline. And those ads, where people are selecting the ingredients, they just didn't have the same bite that they used to, as every other small brewer was sort of doing the same thing. So I think we can go to the next slide. So that left Goodby Silverstein, our pitch team, at sort of a crossroads. We said, okay, there's a million craft breweries out there. They're all talking about their ingredients, and they're all great. They all have high quality ingredients. what can we do? What can Sam Adams do to stand out? And Jeff Goodby said, hey, why don't you guys just do something about Boston? I mean, Sam Adams is the quintessential Boston brewery. They're headquartered on the waterfront of the Seaport District in South Boston. It was first brewed there. A lot of their brewing operations take place in a few different states, but their main tap room is right there in Jamaica Plain. So why don't we just sort of own our heritage, own that Boston identity? And we thought about it, and we thought, Jess is really onto something, because Boston, as Joe mentioned, has sort of become like a place that inspires a lot of opinion. And I think you can see this on the next slide. There are sort of two groups of people in America. There are people that love Boston or love to hate Boston. But no matter which group you fall into, you're going to have an opinion about Boston. You're going to talk about Boston. It's either super fun to beat up on, or it's super, it's your hometown and you want to defend it. It's obviously, there was sort of a run in the mid 2000s where there was The Departed, The Town, Gone Baby Gone. All those movies were coming out, and we thought, okay, like Boston is it's a conversation piece. It's a way to sort of spark an exchange. So let's revel in it. We thought about how to do it a few different ways. We said, do we do something with Mark Wahlberg? Do we get a Boston celebrity? Do we shoot ads in the in the city? That kind of thing. And then I really thought about like growing up, all the characters that I knew from New England, like my college roommates from South Shore area, just friends I'd made at Arnold Worldwide, working there, and thought, what if we could just find one character who represents Boston in a funny comedic way, and he's a little bit of a rascal, but in the end you end up loving him, because that is sort of like the character arc I think a lot of us have with Boston, is like, oh, I hate this, I don't like the Patriots, like, oh, fine, okay, Tom Brady won me over, and that was really our breakthrough. And then we thought, okay, this character, we'll give him a name. And then it was sort of like a bolt of lightning. I said, no name. He's your cousin from Boston. And that way, if you don't have any relatives from Boston, now you do. He's everyone's cousin from Boston. And this is the original paragraph that we went into the pitch with on the next slide. So this is in the pitch, we read this paragraph. It was called Your Cousin from Boston. We said, you've got a cousin from Boston. You know the guy. He wore a Celtics jersey to Thanksgiving dinner. He drives his 98 Mercury Sable like he stole it. He won't shut up about that touchdown he caught against Catholic Memorial junior year, and he speaks his mind loudly. But he always brings Sam Adams, and you'll drink to that. And sure, he's a bit of a rascal, but in the end, he wins everyone over and has a great time doing it. And that's From Boston with Love. And I think maybe this is where we can start to address some of Joe's fair critiques. Is that, first of all, when it comes to a premium product and doing something more in that Bud Light sphere, we realize that the worst thing we could be is invisible. I mean, Sam Adams is still an independent craft brewer, and we are up against international behemoths. Anheuser-Busch is owned by InBev. They have ownership in Belgium and Brazil. They are spending 10 times as much money as we are. We're up against Modelo and Corona, part of these huge international conglomerates. If you look at, our media spend versus theirs, I mean, we are a drop in the bucket. So the worst possible thing we could be is invisible. We have to do something to get noticed. And I apologize for the traffic noise, if you can hear that. Great. Secondly, yes, this character is a bit of a rascal, and he sort of plays into some of the New England stereotypes that maybe has been, well trodden on SNL, Bill Burr. But what I think our differentiating point is this From Boston with Love. That by the end of the commercial, you will find yourself, oh, I kind of like that guy. I don't want to like that guy, but I like that guy. And you know what? I would have a beer with him. And that kind of winning you over is really important for each of these spots. To hopefully sort of like overcome some of that, as Joe said, maybe alienation that some drinkers might feel. And another point to bring up is Sam Adams, the core Sam Adams drinker has aged in the last 30 years. In the 90s, when Sam Adams was the new hot craft beer, the Sam Adams drinker might have been in their late 20s and 30s. And over time, that has just, grown into their late 30s and 40s. And we need a way to reach, drinkers that are in their late 20s and 30s again, to sort of, bring in and invite new fans into the brand. And to do that, I think we all thought we just have to do something funny. We have to stand out. We have to get people talking. Because I think younger drinkers sort of appreciate that bolder swing. So then we can go to the next slide. I think I have some artwork to show you guys. So yeah, we started concepting this character, and then we did some artwork to do a little test viewing with some with a test audience in New England. And this actually might be a fun just thing for students to see, like how these spots come to life. I mean, this is how the original character was drawn, and you can see how much it changed. I mean, first of all, at the wedding, this guy is he's not even wearing a suit. And we realized, actually from testing, like that's too far. It's disrespectful to show up to someone's wedding in not a suit, he's got to at least try. Also, this guy's got kind of like a mean look. I mean, he looks like me, I think. But they kind of gave him like a tough, sort of almost like a Disney villain kind of a vibe. And when it came down to cast the actor, we cast someone who's so sympathetic and magnetic that he wins you over. And yeah, it's just interesting how the process evolved. Oh, also I should mention the bottom right quadrant. This was him Gronk spiking a pillow. And one of the things we learned is, the New England test audience that we talked to said, oh, I've seen that joke 1,000 times. Gronk spiking, come on, what was this, 2012? And that's when we realized that, those sort of broad stereotype jokes, like they don't really play. The more like subtle, nuanced life experience jokes, that's what works. And, I again, going back to another one of Joe's points about losing that ingredient story, I think that our challenge was just inviting people to take a sip. People that might never have considered Sam Adams before, or they thought, oh, it's my dad's beer, or oh, it's not, it's not craft beer anymore. Now it's too big. Just inviting them to have a sip and give Sam Adams another try, because we believe that the product is so good that if we can sort of get you laughing and get you thinking about Sam and, hey, maybe giving it a shot, that, we'll make a Sam Adams fan out of you. And so far that has proven to be pretty effective. And I'm not sure what's on the next slide here. Oh, sure. We can talk about the sort of development. So we did the pitch. The clients really liked this character. But the one thing we all agreed on, that if we do this, we've got to do it right. So here we can see the wicked awesome savings from Geico. If you live in Boston, you see these ads all the time, and they are so annoying because, no one really speaks like this, and they're kind of pandery. So we thought, okay, we have to sort of bring as much authenticity to this project as possible. So we're going to get a director from Massachusetts, and we found Matt Asselton, who is an A-list commercial director. He's actually from Worcester. He has a natural accent himself. We found a Massachusetts actor. We did casting calls in both Boston and LA. The actor we cast is from Amesbury, Massachusetts, the North Shore. Sorry, Joe. We got script input from Boston Beer. I think this is one of the times when, people say, oh, clients and, clients changing jokes. I mean, for us, it was really helpful to have our clients in on the script writing process from the beginning. We made sure we had jokes based on life experiences, not caricatures. I mean, so much of this material is stuff that I took from my college roommates. And then, certain rules, like, let's try to stay away from the wicked stuff. Let's try to stay away from the wicked pizza kind of like broad SNL kind of humor. And then finally, shooting in Boston. Jeff really wanted to shoot in Boston. Unfortunately, I think, as you guys will learn in your career, shooting anywhere outside of California is very difficult for a number of reasons. All the equipment, the directors, the sound people, like all that stuff is just in California. So we ended up shooting in LA, but I should mention that since then, now we are shooting in Massachusetts, about a year after the character's been developed. So we are returning to Boston on Monday. And just, so I guess we can just sort of talk about results. Like I mentioned, Sam Adams had experienced, a sales decline. The first spots launched in, I think, April of last year. Since then, we've seen the first sales growth in the past year in 5 years, a 20% bump in younger drinkers, which is between in late 20s and their 30s, is what we sort of consider that target to be. And we have really expanded the Sam Adams tent, and I think maybe even more importantly, people are talking about Sam Adams on Twitter again. There's like something like a 20 to 50% spike in that social conversation that wasn't happening so much before. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure the sales figures and stuff aren't really everyone's cup of tea. I know we're all, it's on the creative side here. But it's good to know that the campaign is working, and we are inviting people to just sort of take that sip and consider Sam Adams again. Oh, cool. And then, Joe, should I go right into the Super Bowl?
I tell you what, let's watch a couple more, which will include the Super Bowl one, and then you can talk about that after the fact. But I tell you what, I'm sitting here and I'm just nodding along because every one of my objections you guys considered, and then found a reason to move past that. The sale, I mean, at the end of the day, you have to move product, you have to hit those metrics, so that's fantastic. But things that are were lost on me, and me forming my opinion was, the whole idea that Sam had to get younger, right? I'm not getting younger, so I don't feel that, right? It's just so. What this is just a great example of is how our personal preference and our personal likes and dislikes. Yes, they factor into a campaign. We all need to have taste as people who work in this business, but at the end of the day, there's so much more of a skeleton underneath this idea that whether I like it or not really doesn't matter. And it turns out it wasn't even meant for me. So Joe, shut up, right? Joe, get off Twitter and stop insulting AJ's work. So what I'll do is I'll get out of this. We'll play some more spots. We'll come back out. You can tell us a little bit about the Super Bowl. Maybe talk a little bit about the media strategy too, because that's interesting here. Because there's a lot of that going on, and we have all walks of life here. We've got everyone from hardcore creatives to people who just eat, sleep, and drink KPI. So let me stop sharing this, and then I'll jump into the playlist, and I'll just run through the spots. There's a bunch of them, and then when we'll pick ourselves up off the floor from laughing, we'll talk some more.
Whoops, your cousin from Boston.
I did not see that coming. Anyway, Sam Adams Wicked Hazy IPA.
Juicy, right?
Can we not tell my mom about this?
Ah, come on. Seems about right. Your cousin from Boston.
I brought Sam.
Where's the water?
Dude, what if we found a dead body out here? Rope swing. Canoe trip canceled.
It says watch out for cougars.
Oh, Dave, I didn't know your ma was out here.
Yeah, you got a knot, kid.
Oh, sorry.
Nothing like a Sam Adams in the great outdoors. Not too heavy, not too light. A shooting star.
That's a plane.
Shooting star.
Same plane.
Cheers, guys. That's O'Brien's belt right there. You can see the buckle.
Shut the
Huh? Your cousin from Boston.
It's an Alphorn. It's from Bavaria, not Germany. 1002 fell off a truck. Oh, I think I passed out. Beer break. Hey, Jimmy, I got you one.
That's an F sharp.
Mine's bigger.
I'm a wizard. Gotta love Oktoberfest.
I'm still a little lightheaded from blowing it up.
Your cousin from Boston.
Tell your kids I'll bring it back later.
Your cousin from Boston.
Sam Adams Oktoberfest is back on shelves now in August. That's why I'm busting out these babies. Lederhosen. Look it up. TGIF.
It's Wednesday.
Yeah, I know that.
Your cousin from Boston.
Week 10. I'm losing it.
This house is my prison.
Billy, prison was your prison.
That's fair.
Hey, I'm thinking of texting Rachel.
Your ex?
No,
Dude,
sir.
no.
Flush your phone down the toilet now.
Didn't she report you to the IRS?
No, she reported me to the IRS.
Which was a patriotic act. Good for her.
What I'm hearing is that this is a good idea and that I should definitely text her.
No, no one said that.
Where did you get that
Nobody
from?
said that.
Oh, hey, she's typing. She said I peaked in high school.
So what? We all peaked in high school. High school was the best 6 years of my life.
I was super hot in high school.
I was a king.
Thank you, guys. This is why I love you guys. Hey, come on. Let's do this.
Yeah, and hey, if you're done with Rachel, you mind if I give her a call?
Dude,
Whoa, buddy.
Whoa,
What did I step in? What's this about?
Billy, are we not friends anymore?
Yeah, that's exactly why I asked.
Even for you, that's low, Billy.
Premeditated. Hey, would you guys zip it? I'm on the Zoom.
Your cousin from Boston.
Hey guys, how we holding up?
Bored, like so friggin' bored.
I'm great. I'm doing great, but I've been on house arrest for like 4 months. I finally got my monitor off. Look at that. No
bro,
monitor.
what are you thinking?
How?
That's illegal, bro.
It's not. I used the Cutco knives your mother gave my mother last year.
They never dull.
They don't dull. They don't dull.
I'm in sports, man.
Hey, hold on. What if I told you that I had 4 tickets to Fenway Park?
Oh, nice.
Check it out. I just sent you
Right.
some.
I'm coming, but you know I'm not supposed to be there because I'm banned for life.
Oh, yeah, because you punched the mascot on TV.
He was staring at Trisha.
Hey, check it out. I'm on the Sam deck.
Ah, nice. Speaking of upper deckers, there's no line for the bathroom. First time in Fenway history.
Guys, the wave. Woo!
Oh, yeah.
Oh, hey. Okay, that never happened.
It's coming around again. Come on. Here we go.
Woo! Here we go. Hey, where'd Ray go? Ray, grind me a hot dog and a Sam.
All right, there we go. There's a nice trip through those cast of characters. I tell you what, I mean, there's so much added in there. I mean, I've seen these, I probably watched them 10 times today just to make sure that the Zoom worked. But, just that beat that the cousin makes after the campers asks, where's the water? It just, I mean that, and then the tattoo between his shoulder blades. It's just so many little, and someone else pointed it out in the chat about the Boston Public Library loaner laptop for his Zoom. I mean, there's just so much great stuff going on there that takes us so far away from where Sam used to be and where we think Sam is, and it's part of that essential stuff. Like you're saying, AJ, you had to do something. You had to make some noise and really get some attention in an audience that really doesn't pay that much attention. So the one with the Clydesdales, that was the Super Bowl spot. So that was the big headline for the early part of the year for Sam. But AJ, walk us through some of that. We've got this great collection of characters. You've got all these different executions. You've got the Super Bowl. Help round out some of the other nuts and bolts of this campaign and how it came together.
Sure. So I'll say that we we launched with wedding and basketball, and we had just shot that right prior to the pandemic. And as soon as the pandemic hit, we thought, oh my God, should we even release this campaign? And then, B, what are we going to do? How can we continue on creatively? And we sort of had this idea that, okay, like young people are sitting at home, everyone's bored, having drinks on Zoom. Let's just see, what would your cousin and his friends look like on having a Zoom chat. And then we sort of evolved that to those spots where your cousin is blowing in the horn and the Oktoberfest, like sitting in the pool. Those are all done in the pandemic, filmed by the actor at his house with just him and his camera, no crew. That is like, as bare bones as it gets. And we just did that because of the pandemic. I mean, actors, it's interesting. A lot of people have been doing big productions during the pandemic, and we were able to do a production during the pandemic. We shot that camping spot during the pandemic. But an actor, I mean, some of the most vulnerable people during this time, they're out of work, and then when they're on set, they have to take their mask off. They're in a tiny room with a million people around them. Everyone's breathing. So for us, it was great that we were able to do some stuff with this actor, still keep him safe, not risk spreading COVID, and keep, moving the creative ball forward. And then eventually, as sort of things calm down, we were able to shoot a normal commercial outside, I should mention, camping, and we have a golf one too that are all done outside. So yeah, and then in terms of the Super Bowl, I can talk about that quickly. So we were given this interesting challenge. Sam Adams had bought a Super Bowl spot that was to air in 2 markets, just Boston and New York. And they could only afford a 30-second commercial. Having done a few Super Bowl ads, I had learned a couple lessons, in my life. First of all, you really can't tell an intricate brand story in 30 seconds during the Super Bowl. It is the most distracting night of the year. People have friends over, they're eating, they're drinking, they're having a good time, and they're really not super paying attention to your commercial. So the worst thing that you can do on the Super Bowl is be confusing. Simple, funny, effective works well. And then, to grab attention, you can have a big celebrity, a big song. I mean, Chance the Rapper, was one way that we did that, get a celebrity to hook people in. Sam Adams didn't, our budgets are smaller. We couldn't afford a big celebrity, and we weren't going to shell out that kind of money. But so instead we thought, how do we just make a simple statement that'll get people talking? And because it's only airing in 2 markets, we have to rely on word of mouth. We have to rely on digital. So we had a bunch of different ideas going. One of my ideas was to do like a Hamilton spoof called Samilton. Which would have been great, but probably would have been better as like a 5-minute film. And my art director just said, "Oh, what if like he just, I don't know, lets the Budweiser horses go?" And we said, "That's it. That is the script. He is just going to let the Budweiser Clydesdales loose." And we did it. And I think even Anheuser-Busch, they had a good sense of humor about it. But it got people talking. We ended up on the front page of the Wall Street Journal business section. We were on Good Morning America. We were on, all these CBS local affiliates all over the radio. It generated a lot of controversy. And I should mention, some people were, pretty angry that we took a shot at their beloved Clydesdale horses. But that sort of, that controversy sort of kept our marketing in the forefront of people's minds at a time when they would have been paying attention to M&M's and Snickers and all the big Super Bowl brands.
That's great. We got people already demanding the Hamilton spoof.
Yeah, it's I'll admit it is written somewhere. I have it in my computer. But yeah, no, it's it's like that's what's so interesting about the Super Bowl is, that an idea like that is so fun and sticky, and then you realize you really need a good couple minutes to do that. So I'm really glad we went the way that that we went.
That's great. And it was nice that Anheuser-Busch was willing to play along, and everybody out there in TV land. I'm going to open it up to questions in a minute or so. So just indulge me. I got a couple more to ask, and then again, I'll let you guys loose. you had to anticipate some sort of blowback. How did you guys prepare for that? Was PR looped in? What was the preparations, whether it was from, the Super Bowl people and Anheuser-Busch saying that those are you know, our Clydesdale's part of their trade dress, I don't know. And then other people just saying this guy is offensive. What kind of preparations did you guys make for that potential blowback?
Sure. So we have a great PR group at Goodby. And, I'm sure you guys see like the Doritos Super Bowl spots, the Pepsi Super Bowl spots. It is like, it's not magic that, that stuff pops up in your feed. The PR group at Goodby is incredible at what they do. And so we have been working with them hand in hand the whole way. I will also say that, as a creative, I think a lot of people, times people say, oh, legal is like, they ruined my spot. Here, legal, we had to work with legal and with lawyers from Goodby and Boston Beer who really helped us discover that, yes, Budweiser owns trademarks on certain things. The Budweiser Clydesdales in certain contexts is part of their trademark, but you can't trademark the species of an animal. I mean, a Clydesdale just exists in nature, and you can't own nature. So that was something that we were totally prepared for that blowback. I think there was some rumor of like a lawsuit, but never really went anywhere. In terms of blowback on the character, yes, we always, especially you look in the Twitter comments, YouTube comments, you'll always see people say, I hate this guy, I want to punch this guy. And that was just something that we accepted as if you're going to do a campaign that a lot of people notice and that makes a statement and gets people talking, you're always going to get have detractors, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, people are, like we said, there's two groups of people in the world: people that love Boston and people that love to hate Boston. So if you're talking about this character and just liking him, and you're still talking about the brand and generating a conversation and hopefully inviting people to like we said, sort of take that sip and reconsider Sam once again. I will say though that we do focus groups. We did focus groups in New England. We did focus groups out of New England, and the focus groups really told us that in these large group settings, one or two people just doesn't like the character. The overwhelming majority of the focus group grew to really like the character over time, especially seeing a few different spots. You just can't help but want to have a drink with this guy. He's so magnetic. So yes, that sort of like that blowback, that criticism will always continue. And we think that as the campaign develops, maybe those people will find something else to like about it.
What did you guys show in those focus groups? Did you have finished spots? Did you have animatics? What stages did you show?
We did it both. Those of you who are students now, when you're in the agency world, you will realize that testing is just a part of the job. So we do animatics before we go into production, which is like a cartoon. Our animatics, some of them sometimes they have color. The ones we showed were just pencil drawings. So I even did the voice a couple times for some of those animatics. And then after we finish the spot, we have a rough cut. So it's like the edited together spot, but the color is not right. Some other stuff is just not totally finished. We show the rough cut, and those focus groups, they get to see a little preview of the ad. And you know what? Those focus groups are helpful. That they honestly, sometimes they come back and they say, this joke was not the right way to go, and we change it. And I think if you go into research thinking, I'm going to not listen to what anyone else tells me, I'm an artist and these people are encroaching on my art, that is, you're going to lose that battle every time. So we listen to the focus groups, and so far it's worked for us.
All right. This is my last question. I'm open up to you guys. So if you start raising your hands, what's something that got cut that you wish stayed in? Is there a...
Yes. Okay. In camping, we have we had a joke where the character ate poison berries. So he's basically just eating poison berries off the bush, and one of his friends just says, those are poisonous, and he spits them out. But on the day we're on set, the berries that were going to read well, and also that the actor smeared like red berry on his lips, like it would be like a nightmare for makeup. So he actually ate mushrooms. They had a poison mushroom growing on a log, and he just popped a mushroom in his mouth. Of course, we got it into the edit, and the whole thing was just like, I don't know, should he be ingesting something poisonous in the woods? Maybe not. But it was really funny, and I think if we that was one joke that I missed.
All right, it's nice to know there is a line of questionable behavior that the cousin cannot cross. That's good.
Yeah. I mean, certainly when it comes to like eating strange things you find in the forest. Yeah.
All right, great. Well, I tell you what, AJ, it's been fantastic. It really wasn't much of a debate because I know I was wrong from the start. I was just it was all personal bias and being completely misinformed. And I just as a comedy nerd, I just love the comedy of it all. There's so many things there. So I'm going to open it up to some questions. We get Samantha Roll, I believe, if I'm saying your name right, hopefully. Just unmute yourself, ask your question, and then we'll work our way through the list.
Cool. And yeah, Roll is right. People don't usually get that. Thank you. I was wondering, so you talked about your team before, of people who are like coming up with this and sort of workshopping it. And I was wondering like how many people are involved in something like this at like the brainstorming stage, and then once you get further along, like does that group increase when you have like videographers and copy editor or copywriters and stuff like that?
Awesome. Yeah. So the original concept was written by just two people, me and my art director. We weren't associate creative directors at the time, so we were just doing everything ourselves. Copywriter, art director. We wrote all the scripts, and the only creative director who was on the project was Jeff Goodby. So a really small creative development team. But then, like you said, once you get in your production, we have a social communication strategist who pitches jokes all the time and who makes it into the spot all the time. She's amazing. We have, 2 or 3 different account people. We have strategists and research people. So the team does grow, and there's probably now about 10 of us total. It's still a really small account at Goodby. Compared to like, an Xfinity or Pepsi, a bigger brand. And that being said, when we're in script development, people throw out jokes all the time. Like, I think one of Joe's favorite jokes was where the cousin just sort of stares off into the distance and doesn't say anything after he's asked about the water. And I think it was an account person who said, "Oh, let's just cut it off there. Let's not let." There was a joke in there, and she was like, "No, just cut it off there, and let's just let him stare off into space." And we used it. So it really is like a writer's room approach. Anyone can sort of pitch gags, and they do, and that sort of makes for a way more fun working environment.
That's great. That to take care of you, Sarah. That's good. All right, Matthew Parastino.
Yeah, thanks. I just have a quick question. And you mentioned a couple times how you wanted the character to sound like he was from Massachusetts, so you wanted him to have that sound, but you didn't want it to come off as degrading or excessive. You didn't want to use the word wicked. So as a question just for you New Englanders, how did you feel about, or what was your response to the Hyundai Sonata commercial with the smart park? I just wanted to hear your opinion on that.
I was so mad because we had already shot Your Cousin when that came out. Like we had already been on the shoot. It was in the can. We were editing it, and then that came out, and I was like, oh no, like they beat us to it. I love that commercial though. I thought it was super smart. I mean, Rachel Dratch, John Krasinski, they're New Englanders, so I think they have the right to sort of make those gags. What did you think, Joe?
Your Boston guy has a reason to be a Boston guy.
Yeah.
Theirs is just a long joke about our accent. So that was my takeaway on it. And I always say, as long as there's a reason for something to happen, then it's great. But if it's just, that accent is just no more than a bad pun, just milk, right? So you know, as a copywriter, we love and hate puns, and that just makes me crazy, that one. So that's good.
That's a really good point. I should mention that, you know, I'm a younger creative. I'm like a newer associate creative director. So you probably won't hear me like criticize other people's commercials, like, you know, just because I don't know if I have a leg to stand on quite yet. But ask me that question in 5 years, and I'll give you my real answer.
That's it. And it's a small industry too. No matter how big it is, right? It's a small industry, and if you criticize someone, it's going to get back to them.
Yeah, right.
That's great. David Munoz.
Yes, can you hear me? All right, so yeah, I just had one question. It was related to the commercials. So I know in the past, before the My Cousin from Boston, the commercials incorporated, I guess it was the owner, and he used to go through like a little segment that he would show like the process and what the actual beer, Samuel Adams product, means to him. And then they switched over to, I remember now, is this cousin from Boston. How do you guys evaluate when the appropriate time is to switch from how it was before the cousin from Boston, and now maybe potential future projects, or switching over to a different character?
That's a good point. They did the ads with Jim that, you know, about the ingredients, those ran for like 10 or 11 years. And they you know, they were incredibly successful. And so I think, you know, when they felt it was maybe just time for a creative refresh after a decade of doing that, that's when they came to Goodby. So to answer your question, how long could the cousin from Boston live? I mean, we hope 10 or 11 years. I think that when brands sort of feel like it's time for a shakeup, they know, and that's often when they pitch. So to be honest, if they want to move away from the cousin from Boston, I imagine there would be probably another pitch process. So yeah, that's like the tough part of this industry, is like when you change up things, oftentimes they will change up agencies too.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, that was one of my questions. What's the life expectancy of this? Are you guys working on other stuff in parallel to the cousin?
Oh yes, we are. We have sort of like more kind of mini social campaigns that are more product focused. And like you said, Joe, like, you know, it might at a certain point there could very well be a time when the cousin gets back into the ingredients. International travel is opening up. You know, we have this incredible Oktoberfest Marzen. There's no reason why your cousin couldn't go, go to the hop fields of Germany. You know, there's no, that's what's great about having this character, is there's no telling where he could go in the future. So we are working on sort of some other stuff that is not cousin related. And in the future, I mean, the cousin himself, we could just sort of put that character in some different environments.
You could trigger an international incident. Sarah Childs, next up, please.
Hi, I have just like a small question and like a comment. I'm from New Hampshire, like southern New Hampshire, so I'm kind of close to Mass. And then both of my parents have like really thick like New England accents, and I personally think this ad was like so funny. Oh my god! Like I remember watching this on the Super Bowl with my dad, and we were like crying, laughing, because we love like all of that, like making fun of Boston stuff and making fun of the accent. Like we thought like the Smat Pack commercial is really funny, just because, you know, we just think it's like a really funny joke. And I like that you, like you said, kind of focused more on like the little intricate things, like when he called him kid in like the camping ad, and like you didn't just say like wicked pissa and like all the basic stuff that's kind of tired. And then my question is, I don't know if you've heard of this, but just another like Boston parody thing. I don't know who does it, but there's like a YouTube series, and it's The Real Housewives of Southie. And it's like the Real Housewives of South Boston. And that's another thing that like my family and I think is really funny. So I don't know if you've heard about that, but I recommend you check it out. It's really funny. But I just wanted to tell you that, you know, as a New Englander, I think you did a really good job with the ad.
Thank you. And I will say we have heard of it, love it. the actor who plays your cousin from Boston appears in the Real Housewives of Southie as a bartender, and the director, this was like, probably 5 years ago, and the director who did Real Housewives of Southie, we talked to her about directing us, around, and hopefully the schedule didn't work out. Hopefully, at some point we're going to get to work with her. That woman has done a lot of Broad City. So yeah, that we're definitely aware of that sketch series and love it. And hopefully there'll be like a crossover at some point.
That's great. I got to check that. I had never heard of that. All right, fantastic. Isis Kirkland.
Hi, I don't really have a question about the process. It's more about you. So I know you said you started off with like the numbers part of advertising, and you realized you like reading and writing. That's more your side. So I guess when was the moment, or how did you realize that you were happy there and like that's where you fit in as far as the creative side?
That's a great question. When I took this job as a junior copywriter in-house at Wayfair.com, those in-house jobs at tech companies' websites, they're a lot easier to get than agency jobs. And like I was saying, if you are writing, junk mail and coupons, and when I was writing junk mail and coupons and loving it, that's when I realized like this is where I'm meant to be. So I think it's a good lesson that like if you take a risk in your early 20s, and if you take a job that maybe doesn't sound like the sexiest job in the world, and some of my friends were off, they were in finance and they're investment bankers, and I was writing email spam headlines, but I loved it. And I think that's sort of how okay, I'm onto something here. This job matches my skill set and I'm having fun doing it. And if you can sort of find that kind of groove, then there is a way that and if there's a way to sort of make money doing it, that's something worth pursuing.
That's great. And one of my notes here, AJ, is the fact that you did take an indirect route to where you are now. And I think that's incredibly common in advertising, to the point where not a lot of people in advertising have studied it in school. So, a lot of you guys have a head start on some people coming out of school with some other background. You guys already know some of the language you guys have, been surrounded by, which is great. And then, it's funny. I was having my intro to copy class write emails this week, and I'm beating them up on subject lines. So that kind of stuff, it flexes those muscles. It builds muscles. You may not love it, but it's necessary. That's necessary. All right. Next question, Ari Santana.
This kind of piggybacks off of that, like moving into the industry in a way that like you haven't previously, but like how do you combat, possibly if you do even have it, the idea of like imposter syndrome and like feeling like I'm not good enough to be at such a great agency?
That's a really good question. I think you will. Actually, my girlfriend works at Wyden Kennedy, which is, it's good to be service and Wyden Kennedy is like even better. They're like some people would say, they're the best agency in the country. I don't know if I'd say that. But yeah, when you get to these places where you're like, oh, do I really belong? I honestly, I think it's just like putting your head down and working. I mean, I would just, I know nowadays I don't want to encourage people to like do an unhealthy amount of work, but just, staying a little later, coming in a little earlier, writing, a dozen scripts to try to get 3 good ones, and just sort of, just doing the work, and hoping that, let's say I'm not the most talented, funny writer. I mean, there are Hollywood, writers. There are writers in our own agency that are 100 times funnier than I am. But the one thing I can control is that I'll bring in, maybe twice as many scripts. And I think, when you're starting out and you're having that imposter syndrome, you're feeling like, do I belong here? And you just work through it. And, if you have the dedication, it will work out. I mean, these agencies, they reward hard work. And yeah, I think, but also, guys, you don't, don't worry. There are, yeah, it's, I guess that would be my answer. Sorry, I haven't really thought about that.
That's a pretty high powered apartment there with Wyden and Goodby in the same. That's like the Red Sox and Yankees living together. That's fantastic. And sort of to piggyback on your answer with Ari, those of you who suffered through my creative thinking class can finish this quote for me. When in doubt, do the work, right? I mean, that's the only answer. You got to show up, you got to get it done. So, it's a big part of the process. Our next question comes from Justin Melnick.
Hey, Joe. Hey, Jay. Thank you so much for being here. Fantastic discussion. I'm going to bring up a question on behalf of my account planning and strategy peeps here. Would love if you could share for us a little bit about the role of the brief played in this campaign development. Specifically, is there one moment that was in the brief that you and your team just kind of grabbed onto that then led to My Cousin?
Yes, the brief, I would say the brief from the client was really simple. Get people talking about Sam Adams again. That was their goal. But in terms of a brief internally, to be totally honest, I think the original brief was not about Boston. The original insight was more about like the ingredients of the beer, and it was really Jeff who said, maybe we should just do something about, like I said, like do something about New England, and I think that's a good example that sometimes strategy is a conversation. So you have one strategy and you really think this is the way to go, and then the creatives maybe say, oh, what if it's something else? And then everyone kind of pivots. We have a conversation, and then after that conversation, the strategy did tack to this sort of Boston play. But yeah, I think that would the original brief was get people talking about Sam Adams. So in that respect, we have not diverted from that brief one iota from the day that we started this pitch.
You go with that, Justin?
Yeah. Well, we could work with that.
I mean, but it's an interesting point, though. So there's the brief, right? Get people talking about Sam, and then now the whole universe of potential strategy is right there, right? So how are you? What are you going to do? And not just creative strategy, but the business strategy, right? Is it an ingredient story? And you guys were smart to say no, it's not, because that's not working. It's I don't know if you guys have talked about this internally, but it has to be similar to the leap you guys made ages ago with Got Milk, right? Where it was no longer a health story. It became the absence of milk is the story. So it's an interesting departure from a well-established strategy or theme that has really become less effective.
Yeah, that's a really good parallel, because I've heard Jeff tell that story a few times. Sometimes the mid-creative process, the strategy just changes a little bit. And it's great that we have incredible strategists at Goodby who are willing to sort of move along with us as we sort of migrated over to that territory.
That's great. Our next question is from Messina.
Hi, yeah, I was just curious on you deciding who you wanted to represent this brand. What made you decide this young kind of this young guy to represent the Samuel Adams brand instead of a middle-aged man who's been experiencing around the bush or somebody else?
That's a really good point. We looked at actors must have been as old as in their 40s and 50s. We looked at especially when we did the casting in Boston. I mean, we looked at Boston stand-ups who'd been doing their routines there for 20 years. And I think we wanted to go younger because, obviously we were hoping to sort of entice that younger drinker, people in their late 20s and 30s. And it helps to have a brand mascot who is roughly in that age group, late 20s and 30s. But that being said, Greg, the actor, Gregory Hoyt, the actor who plays your cousin, I feel like if he had come in, even if he was 10 years older, we still would have picked him. He is an incredible improv. He is such a sympathetic guy. He is, in his audition, he was bouncing off the walls on set. He's willing to do anything. He comes up with better jokes than we wrote. So sometimes the actor really, the person you end up casting sort of takes precedent over who you were hoping to see, and that's a really good lesson too. I mean, like if Greg wasn't Greg, I mean, I don't know if this campaign would even exist.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
So, yeah, somebody said, I forget who, said that 90% of directing is casting.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah,
And
that's why it helps to have a director like Matt Asselton who did that casting process with us, and was like, that is the guy.
That's great. Interesting. You called him a mascot.
Oh, Joe, I'm gonna be in trouble at Goodby now.
Is that taboo?
Yeah, we try to separate it. Like, we don't want him, saying, get this 6-pack for $3.99, like pitching the camera. He's not a used car salesman. We always say that he's a super fan, and he's gonna rep Sam Adams whether they want him to or not. And sometimes even on their Instagram posts, they'll be like, we couldn't help, he keeps sneaking into the brewery, like, get him out of here. Like, they have this funny interplay where he's not their mascot. They try to keep him at arm's length, and he just like loves them so much. He shows up. So yeah, we shouldn't call him a mascot. He is a super fan, and we think that's sort of been a more fun dynamic.
That's interesting. That jumped out at me because I used to do some work for the people behind the Philly Fanatic, and they refuse to call him a mascot. He is a character, and he's got a backstory and a family and so that's the word mascot always sends off alarm bells for me.
That's a good catch.
Yeah. So we're headed up towards the top of the hour. I know AJ's going to probably have dinner and probably go back to work too, because he's a high-level creative at a super shop. So we got time for a few more questions. Well, I'll throw one out here now while we wait for another hand. AJ, some advice for our students. We're coming up on graduation. We got others that are looking for internships or whatnot. How do you suggest they start to attack the advertising world?
I would say, easiest advice I can give you is, every agency, they have job listings online, and I did that, and I applied to a million agencies and sent out resumes and cover letters, and it's so weird. Like, you have a lot more success just, especially on LinkedIn, just reaching out to people that you're interested in their career. I mean, you can LinkedIn request me, if that's interesting to you, and just connecting with people and asking them questions and doing an informational interview, and then having that person in the agency refer your resume or your book. Reaching out to people on LinkedIn, the worst thing they can say is no, or just not respond to you. And that's often that's not because they don't like you, it's just because they're busy. I think that that trying to meet people at agencies and get to know them and ask them questions and try to pick their brain, and then if it develops into a situation where they want to refer you your stuff, I mean, that is a much more successful way to go, this sort of networking. And I think 20 years ago, networking was hard. You'd have to probably live in New York City and meet people on the street, but now networking is online. It's all on LinkedIn. And I assume through Temple, you guys have a great alumni network. Just sort of pounding the pavement, and you got to just be a little shameless too. Like, I hate this stuff. Oh my God, like I'm getting like butterflies in my stomach thinking about like cold LinkedIn emailing people. It's so painful. But if you just do it, it will pay off. You will find that one person who is like really sympathetic, who knows what we've all been through, all of us young creatives together. We know how hard it is and wants to look out for you. So that would be my advice.
That's great. You only need one yes, right? That's it.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's it.
And yeah.
And I'd say Twitter too is a good spot to just troll for ad people. You can try to send them a DM, and maybe you get through, maybe you don't, so that's how AJ and I met, is over Twitter. I insulted him publicly, and and this is the point in the broadcast where I apologize, because what, the work is more Bud Light than it was Jim cooking ingredients, but there was a really, really good reason for that. And then you guys executed it at the highest level, as you know, Goodby would. You know, so, and that's where a lot of times all the money and support for Bud Light doesn't, you know, deliver on that. So, you know, they've had enough missteps. I love some of their stuff. I love Real Men of Genius and some of the other characters they've, but you know, as a category. We got time for one more question. Any brave soul out there ready to hit that hand button? Otherwise, we'll cut everybody loose and capture. It's still 68 degrees out there. Going once, going twice. All right. Well, AJ, let me thank you for the time. Let me thank you, you know, because it's not just this session. AJ and I have been going back and forth for a few weeks. Thank you very much. Your generosity is noted and appreciated by all the owls. The work is fantastic. I can't wait to see the rest of the cousin stuff roll out, because it's you know, it's much better than I thought it was.
Hey, thank you. It was great to meet. As you said, Joe and I met on Twitter, you know, arguing about ads, which is like awesome. That's how ad people are, and that's, you know, how the business works, and that's totally fine. And yeah, thank you guys all so much. What a special program that you guys have here. I'm sure I'll be running into all of you in the agency world soon enough.
That's right. They're going to come. They'll bounce you out once ageism kicks in when you're gray like me. Everyone, thank you for taking the time out of your night. We were at well over 100 people at one point, which is phenomenal. This is what the bird feeder is all about. Just you drop down for a while, you bump into some people, and now, you know, you got something. Hey, did you see my cousin from Boston last night at the bird feeder? You get something to talk to other people about, and that's what this is at the core. Yeah, we're going to learn a little bit. You know, it's a little bit like the anti-Seinfeld, that you're going to learn something. And there's no hugging right now, but maybe at some point we'll hug around the bird feeder too. Everyone, good night. And
thank you so much.
Stay safe and stay healthy, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.